Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and tonight we're going to have Paul Weir, that is, the athletic director of Eastern New Mexico University. We're also going to have Abby Barnum, the head coach of Greyhound Soccer. I'll finish up with an overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Not the best rodeo for Coach Flynn and the squad over at Vernon, Texas. They only had two individuals, Shacey Marr and Kyler Bell, that made it to the short go in their respective events. A big cross-country meet in Arkansas, the Chili Pepper Invitational, and the Greyhound ladies finished in 18th place. The Greyhound guys finished in 33rd place. And congratulations to the Greyhound football team. They scored 24 points in the first half, 28 points in the second half, and beat Lincoln University on homecoming 52-6. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so we'll clear this out and we'll bring in our first guest, Paul Weir, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and it is an honor to bring to the set of Sportslook the athletic director of Eastern New Mexico University, Paul Weir. And Paul, welcome to Sportslook.
Doc, thank you for having me.
Paul, an obvious question. What was it about the athletic director position at Eastern that got you interested enough to apply?
Whew, that's a long answer, but I'll keep it as short and succinct as I can here. I actually got to visit Eastern New Mexico several years ago when I was a basketball coach at New Mexico State. We were recruiting a kid out of Clovis at the time, and I'd kind of come through the area. I knew the basketball coach, and I just remember leaving the institution a couple of times going, wow, this is a really neat place. And you don't think much of it at the time. You go on to your work and your life, and however many years later when this position opened, I just had very fond memories of it initially. And then when I started to call and communicate with different people in and around Eastern and the position itself, I got more and more excited about it. So it started there, it ended here. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff in between, but mostly just very positive thoughts and feelings around the school and the institution and the athletic department as well.
Obviously, it's a two-way process. The university has to sell you on what the university has to offer and make it intriguing enough for you to apply. You also have to sell yourself. And what would you say was your biggest selling point? What do you think really sold the deal to get you the job?
Gosh, that's probably for the search committee and the president to tell you. I just was honest about who I was, what maybe my strengths could be for a position such as this, and maybe what my weak points were, and just was authentic and transparent about those. My experiences in this state for the past 17 years, albeit as a basketball coach, I believe served me very well to hopefully position Eastern's athletic department going forward in a positive way. And then you realize in all the years I've been in this state how small of a state it really is, and the connections of the people that I've met in my time in the state and their connections to Eastern New Mexico. So it was amazing how many people I already knew that were alumni or former athletes or administrators or faculty members, et cetera. And it was encouraging to kind of, come in and have such a nice, warm welcome and just circle around me that I could already kind of count on.
Once you got the job, obviously the very first thing you wanted to do was to talk to the coaches that would be serving under you. And there again, it's a two-way process. You're trying to kind of figure out what they're all about, but you're trying to give them some idea of what you're all about. And what was, if there was a commonality among the coaches that were coming back, what did you think that commonality was?
Youth and passion is probably how I would surmise it best. It's a young group of coaches, just collectively as a group. Now, not everybody, all of them, but overall as a trend, it is trending younger. And I really appreciated their enthusiasm, particularly a group that did not get to participate the year before. We're kind of coming out of some interesting times all the way around. And for them to kind of embody that kind of spirit was incredibly encouraging from my seat.
And how about the student athletes? What was the two-way dynamic with them?
Just starting to get to know them. You know, the beautiful thing about sports and on college campuses, you get such a wide variety of kids and experiences and backgrounds. So when you meet the football team, there's obviously a wide spectrum of types of kids on the team, and not only physical type, but emotionally and socially. And then as you go through each of the teams, you get some really neat connections with people. So it's been really fun to meet the different teams, the athletes on them. Obviously, I don't get to know them the way that I could before when I was coaching, but you get to know so many more of them now that it's something I'm looking forward to. I know my kids are already excited about. They've been to several different practices and games of some different teams and gotten to know some of the athletes and coaches. So just looking forward to continuing to open up those different doors to teams and meet all the neat people that are behind them.
And actually, as it turned out, you did have an opportunity to make a coaching hire once you became the athletic director. And if you had to sum it up, what do you look for in a coach? What are going to be the characteristics that are get people to the head coaching positions here?
Sure. I think obviously being a former coach myself, I have my own profile and what I feel are strengths and weaknesses. But I think even independent of that, although I'll bring that, to the table, it was really about what's a best fit for Eastern. In my experiences at New Mexico State and New Mexico, there have been some great coaches, some great faculty members, some great administrators, some great presidents, but they came into those positions at those particular institutions and it just wasn't the right fit. It didn't make them a bad candidate. It didn't make them necessarily a bad person or a person for the job. It just didn't make them a right fit. And I think what I want to be able to do is bring that experience here and look for the right fit for Eastern, for Portales, for our local community, and find coaches that fit into that much more so than maybe a particular coaching, box for me to personally check.
You've had a wealth of coaching experience prior to becoming the athletic director. So you've worked for a lot of different athletic directors and a lot of different programs. But what was the most surprising thing when you actually became an athletic director? What was the one thing like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of the job?
There's a lot of depth to it that you probably don't appreciate when you are the coach. And I can't tell you how many times I've been calling athletic directors that I know in this state, administrators in this state, people in administration at New Mexico State and New Mexico. How does this work? How does that work? To get their insight so that when I walk into my next meeting, I have a much better understanding of what I'm walking into, or a question that maybe I had going in that now I can answer, or sometimes a question somebody else had for me that I couldn't give them a quality one at the time. I have to go, to what is a really strong network that I'm very fortunate to have of all the different people that I've worked with here at New Mexico and New Mexico State for the past 14 years, sorry.
Paul, if there's one thing that you really would like to accomplish short-term as an athletic director, and if there's one thing you'd really like to accomplish long-term, what are your main number one short-term goal and your long-term goal?
I think in the short run, we've got to find a way to stabilize ourselves, get a foundation underneath us that we can start to build upon. It's been a very fragile time and fluid time in Eastern athletics, and really Eastern New Mexico University as a whole. When you just look at what COVID has done and changes in presidency and changes in our department with a lot of coaches, there's just been a lot of movement. And I think my job right now is to try and just stabilize all of us, find a point that we can all set at. It might not be where we all want to be, but we have to just kind of get our feet underneath us, so to speak, and then build from there and be able to grow ourselves. Obviously, our resources are always going to be a challenge here, and finding the most creative, strategic ways to grow our resources, to give more back to the kids and the coaches and really the people of Eastern New Mexico University, and hopefully work hand in hand with the school to increase enrollment and increase retention and increase our resources, and not be thought of or looked at as kind of a one-off entity here at ENMU, but a critical part and piece of ENMU growing itself back to where it kind of was. So I think we're both working on the same challenges, and hopefully we can work on them together and grow each other as we go. But I think Eastern and the athletic department is just trying to find some stable ground, set ourselves there, and then build going forward.
You used the term fluidity when you talked about Eastern. Well, unfortunately, that's also the phrase that could apply to the Lone Star Conference right now, because the news came that Texas A&M Commerce will be leaving the conference. Obviously, I'm sure there is nothing set in stone, but if you kind of had to say what the options are for the Lone Star Conference moving forward, what do you think the LSC is looking at?
Yeah, no more softballs from Doc. I
No.
like it. Yeah, so the troubling part of Commerce leaving was it reduces the football playing school number in the Lone Star Conference. The Lone Star Conference is a terrific place to be for all of our sports. We enjoy it. We've had a very long history in it. All of our sports can compete in it in a great region that we're really thrilled to be a part of. The issue is, as the football playing members slowly reduce themselves, it puts the remaining football members in a little bit of a compromising situation as far as what the long-term future of the Lone Star Conference is for football playing schools. I know it's a lot of football, but that's unfortunately what drives this stuff. And by Tarleton leaving a few years ago, Commerce leaving now, you wonder about maybe some of the other schools and what their future plans might be, and where does that position Eastern in the future. So we are committed to the Lone Star Conference. We've had a great partnership with them, want to continue to work with them, and hopefully can find some short and long-term solutions to sustain the conference. But it also behooves us as an institution, a department, to position ourselves in the future as well. So that could involve other opportunities. But right now we are committed to the Lone Star Conference.
And Paul, obviously, we would hope people are interested in Eastern New Mexico University athletics. If they're watching this program, they probably are. But if they really want to know more, we've got a great website, and we've got a new sports information director, relatively new. So there are ways that people can plug into Eastern athletics.
We are. So we're rolling out a lot of new platforms. We have just recently rolled out a digital network, the Lone Star Conference Digital Network, where people can watch from wherever, any team they want online. It's a small fee to watch. I know that's been troubling to some, but we are able to provide play-by-play announcers, multiple camera angles, and really every game you can imagine. And so far, it's been terrific. We've had great support and a lot of people signing up to watch these games. And most of the price that you do pay for those games does come to our department. So that allows us to continue to put the games on and buy the new equipment and hire the people to come in and provide, sound play-by-play and analysis for those that are watching. We also have a new partnership with a group called Caring Cent, which allows us to reach out to people through email. And we've just started that. We have a football virtual town hall coming up. We're going to do a lot of other kind of engagements where if you kind of give us your email address, we're going to email you updates, videos, all kinds of things in and around Eastern athletics. And we're hopeful that we have a few other things in the works we'll be able to roll out where all of our fans can learn and know more about the things that are going on in our program and our department.
Well, Paul, congratulations on the success that you've had starting to build back up the brand name of Eastern Athletics, and wish you the best of luck taking us all the way back.
Thank you, Doc. We're really excited about it, and thank you so much for having me on.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment. So what we'll do is we'll clear this out and we'll bring in Abby Barnum right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we welcome back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound Soccer, Abby Barnum. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
Thank you for having me.
Coach, since last time we talked to you, your ladies have played quite a few matches, and if there's one thing I can say for sure, your ladies play great defense.
They do. They've been trying real hard. We've had at times only 3 subs, and that's tough to play that amount of minutes every game. And I've had some players that have played 90 minutes every game, and they're just exhausted. So they've hung in there and done really well.
So what, if you had to say there's one thing that a defender has to have, is it speed, lateral quickness, or an IQ for the game of soccer itself?
Yeah, soccer IQ is huge, especially if you don't have that speed and that agility aspect of it. But a lot of it is just the 1v1 defending and being smart on it. I myself was a slow defender at times, and so you learn to be more smart on the ball and have a higher soccer IQ, so you don't just rely on speed. So we have a good mixture of both back there, of speed, and they all have IQ back there, but they have a lot of speed, but they're also just smart on the ball.
There are for people that aren't really familiar with the sport of soccer, there are basically two approaches. One is to work the ball side to side and look for an advantage. The other one is just kick it down the field and hope that your ladies are faster than the other team. If you're going to schedule a team that you'd like to play, do you think you're better suited to negate a team that works it side to side, or are you better with a team that just tries to attack down the field?
We actually play better with teams that try to possess the ball because we're a possession-oriented team. There's a couple teams in our conference, one primarily that are very direct, and that's one of the hardest teams to play because they don't need to keep the ball on the ground. They're good in the air, they're good off of set pieces, and that's very difficult for a team that, one, most of us are in our team is 5'5" and under, so we don't want the ball in the air, we want the ball on the ground and to keep it and move it. And so when we do play those teams, it's just difficult to kind of get your own bearings and try to control the game your own way when the other team just doesn't want to play. And it's not fun soccer for us. We like to play.
There we go. In this part of the world, playing in Portales, New Mexico, the wind can quite often be a huge factor. The matches that I've gone out to see, we've been blessed this year that you really haven't had to play in the 30-mile-an-hour winds that we sometimes get.
Absolutely. Usually it's the spring that really kills us, and we have had several times where we've had to go indoors because I'll put a cone on the ground and it flies away. So, and that also is another reason why we like to play on the ground, especially in the spring, because if it's in the air, it's just going to be taken by the wind.
So what is the toughest place for your girls to play? I mean, obviously a limited amount of experience so far, but is there a stadium where the turf is just like not as good? It's a little more worn, maybe because of the way that the stadium is configured?
Actually, all of our schools in the conference have beautiful stadiums. There's not one place where I go and just unhappy with the way it's set up or the turf or the grass. All of the grass fields are very nice. And so we make sure that we get onto a grass field beforehand, so we getting used to the surface a little bit. But in terms of difficulty in the region, more so is Colorado, going higher elevations. And even though some of the schools we played, the elevation wasn't that much higher, my girls were starting to feel it halfway through the game. And I don't know if a lot of that's mental or what, but I know as a player, I struggled playing at higher elevated places. So, but that was one of the games we did play at, was the Western Colorado, which has the highest facilities you can play against. And we ended up winning. Then we went to a lower elevation and then struggled with the elevation, so.
It's interesting, in the Lone Star Conference itself, you're like the highest elevation, so you have the home field advantage. But when you play against teams in Colorado, it wouldn't be that way.
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting. Going into the season, you probably had a couple of young ladies that thought, okay, this is going to be my best striker. This is going to be my best defender. And sometimes that proves to be the case. And other times there are players that really come out of nowhere and really impress you more than you thought they were going to. Do you have a player that's really stepped it up that really wasn't, you were considering a first-tier player at the beginning of the season?
You know, not necessarily of, who was going to play and start, but we did have a player who wasn't an outside back. She did not play in the midfield, or she did not play in the defense. She played as a midfielder, recruited as a midfielder, and we had an injury in our back line early on, and she stepped up right away. And so she deserves that recognition. Her name's Sierra, and she's a freshman this year, and she just kind of blew us all out of the water. She came in as one of our fittest players. She's our hardest worker. She's always wanting to learn more on the way to trips. She's in my seat next to me, asking me film questions and asking me how she can be better and improve. And I can say she's one that every single game, every single day, she's getting better, she's improving, and we're relying on her in the back now. So she stepped up.
With your team, you've obviously got players that lead by example. You've got players that lead vocally. Who would you say is your best example leader? Who's your best vocal leader?
Yeah, so I'll just use my captains as our examples. So we have three. And Kinsey Mitchell, she's more of our vocal leader. She's going to be very, very loud on the field, communicating well, directing. Selena is our other captain. She's very much a quiet one on the field, but she's going to work hard and lead by example. And then we have Mackenzie Mendez, and she's a little bit of both. She's a little bit quiet at times, but she's also that captain that everyone feels comfortable going to, and she'll lead by example everywhere she goes, and on and off the field too. She has great grades. She's already graduated too this past spring, so she's a good influence to have around.
In terms of the season so far, you've had some wins, you've had some losses. What would you say so far has been the high point? It may not have even been a win. It may have been a match against a team that's really highly regarded that you played close. So what's been the high point for you so far?
You know, we played against Angelo State University, and that game was a 1-0 win for them, and they won from a PK. I believe we had a handball in the box, which is unfortunate, but that's a ranked team. They've done very well. They're a standout in our conference. It's between DBU and them that we're always all going back and forth on who's going to potentially try to win conference this year, and who's our biggest opponent to play. And they held their own for a majority of that game. There was times that, we weren't happy with how we were playing on the field, but that game kind of started off with us progressing after each game. So I don't sit there and, harp on the score or how many goals we scored or lack of. It's more of the goals that we set before each game. Are we accomplishing them? Are we getting better? All of that. And so after that game, they really saw that they've accomplished some of those goals. And then from there on out, each game, we've been able to check some of those boxes off that we've been wanting to accomplish.
And that leads me to an interesting question that I've never asked you. So you set team goals. Do your young ladies set individual goals for themselves, or would you prefer them to just don't worry about how you're doing individually, worry more about how the team's doing?
A little bit of both. So we set goals right before each game of what we want to do, kind of like our game plan, but also things we've been working on to get better as a whole. And then individually, I usually have my one-on-ones with each player, and we talk about how they can be better individually to help the team as a whole. And that's where a lot of them, they watch their self on film, they watch other people in their position, they watch someone that maybe is playing better than them so that they are getting better. So it's a little bit of both.
And how much film time do your ladies spend? Is there a certain amount of time that the team has to put in, or is it an individual basis?
So I've asked them to watch every game, and then we do film before each game. So they're supposed to go back and watch it all, but I mainly pull clips, or sometimes we'll watch big moments in the game, whether it's 15 minutes, a full half. Sometimes we've sat and watched a full game, but we do that before each game.
And do you have an assistant? I didn't even ask you this the first time I had you on, but do you have an assistant coach this year?
Yeah, we do. Her name's Naomi Morales. She's our graduate assistant this year. She came from playing at University of Southwest, so she's familiar with the area and region, and she's been great help. She came in a little bit late, so maybe when I was first on with you, she wasn't here just yet, but she came in here a little bit late, but she's been a real help.
I don't feel quite as bad then, because I didn't think you had mentioned an assistant coach. So how do you split up the responsibilities? What is she responsible for?
So kind of just anything I throw at her, which has been a lot. She started in a little bit late. It's her first soccer coaching job. And so I didn't have time to sit there and teach her right up front because we were already in preseason when she got here. So it's more of, all right, I'm gonna teach you along the way, get you acclimated, and then whatever I throw at you, we're gonna do together. So a lot of it's been us kind of tag teaming everything, but she's done a lot of the academic side with the girls, study hall, any of the travel itineraries and all of our away trip needs and things like that. And then on the field as well, she's helping practice plan and giving her opinion and voice throughout the games and throughout training as well. So she's had a lot of responsibility early on.
And Coach, the most important question, when is the next time that we're going to get a chance to see your young ladies in action at the Greyhound Stadium?
Absolutely. So next Wednesday, we are playing against Oklahoma Christian, and that's at 5 p.m.
And one of the best things, obviously the best thing is they get to watch Greyhound soccer, but the second best thing, the cost is pretty reasonable.
Absolutely. It's free to come in.
It's free to come in. Well, Coach, congratulations on the success you've had so far, and best of luck moving forward for the rest of the season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. In the movie Talladega Nights, Will Ferrell says, there can't be two number ones, at which point John C. Reilly says, yeah, because that'd make an 11. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can have two first because it happened at Talladega on Monday when Bubba Wallace won the Talladega race. And he was the first person to cross the finish line, but he was also the first African American to win a NASCAR event since Wendell Scott did it back in 1963. So to Bubba Wallace, I say shake and bake. Well, that will conclude an overtime, and that will conclude an episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my guests, Paul Weir and Abby Barnum. I'd like to thank my floor crew, especially my new director, Ms. Erica. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.